The early morning fog crept through the streets of San Francisco like ghostly fingers, wrapping around the sleek glass towers of the financial district. Wayne Bryant watched its advance from his office on the 47th floor of Bryant Technologies headquarters. His reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows showed a man who had aged well despite the pressures of building a tech empire. At 55, his dark hair had begun graying at the temples and fine lines marked the corners of his eyes, yet his tall frame remained athletic, a testament to his disciplined morning workout routine. Suddenly, the notification sound from his phone broke the silence. Wayne glanced at the screen, and a smile formed as he read his wife's message. "Don't forget Travis' graduation dinner tonight. Honey, the whole family will be there. 7 p.m. sharp at Lou Petit Jardin." He picked up the phone to respond but paused as memories flooded back. Travis taking his first steps, his determined expression at elementary school science fairs, and now finally completing medical school. Wayne's thumbs moved across the screen. "Wouldn't miss it for the world. Our boy did well," he texted. The familiar ding of the executive elevator pulled his attention away from the phone. Oliver Keller's footsteps echoed across the polished marble floor, each step measured and purposeful like the man himself. Wayne turned to face his CFO and oldest friend, noting the thick stack of papers in Oliver's hands. "Morning, Wayne," Oliver said in his usual commanding tone. "I got the final IPO documents here. Everything's set for next Thursday." Oliver placed the stack on Wayne's desk, straightening the papers with precise movements. Wayne approached the desk and ran his fingers along the edge of the papers. 25 years, Oliver. Remember when our biggest concern was making rent for that garage in Palo Alto? And eating something other than ramen noodles?" Oliver added with a brief chuckle that did not quite reach his eyes. He hesitated and adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses, a nervous habit Wayne had noticed over their 30 years of friendship. "There is one thing we should discuss, though." Wayne settled into his leather chair and gestured for Oliver to take a seat. "What's on your mind?" Oliver remained standing, his fingers drumming lightly on the desk. "The share distribution to the kids. Are you sure about those percentages? It's a lot of power to handle at their age." Wayne leaned back and studied his friend's face. "They're not kids anymore, Oliver. Alicia is 32 and running our European division like she was born for it. Scene's got our Asian markets growing faster than projected. And Travis." He smiled, pride evident in his voice. "Well, he chose a different path, but he's got the same Bryant determination." "That's not what I meant," Oliver pressed, concern edging his voice. "Power changes people, Wayne, even family." Wayne waved off the concern with a dismissive gesture. "They're good kids, Oliver. While I was here building all this, Marlene raised them right. Besides," he added with a wink, "you've helped keep an eye on them too. You're practically their uncle." Oliver's expression flickered, something between guilt and resignation, but it passed so quickly, Wayne wondered if he had imagined it. "Of course, I should get back to the financial team. They're finalizing the prospectus," Oliver said as he straightened his tie. As Oliver headed for the door, Wayne called out, "Hey, you're coming to Travis's graduation dinner tonight, right? Lou Petit Jardin at 7, wouldn't miss it." Oliver replied without turning around, his shoulder tense beneath his perfectly tailored suit. After Oliver left, Wayne turned back to the window. The fog had thickened, obscuring the lower floors of neighboring buildings. He pulled out his phone again and scrolled through family photos. Marlene's last charity gala, Alicia's wedding to Hu 3 years ago, Scene's engagement party with Crystal last summer. His family's smiling faces looked back at him, a portrait of success and happiness. If he looked closer, he might have noticed how Marlene's smile never quite reached her eyes in recent photos, or how his children tended to cluster together in group shots, slightly apart from him. But success has a way of blinding men to subtle warnings, and Wayne Bryant had been very, very successful. Lou Petit Jardin lived up to its name, with ivy-covered walls and twinkling lights creating an intimate garden atmosphere on the top floor of a downtown high-rise. Wayne arrived early, watching the restaurant staff arrange flowers and adjust place settings in the private dining room with military precision. The maitre d' approached with a slight bow. "Your family has begun to arrive. Shall I show them in?" Before Wayne could respond, a burst of laughter announced their presence. Alicia entered first, elegant in a navy business suit that suggested she had come straight from the office. Her husband Hugh followed, his investment banker demeanor softened by the way he kept his hand protectively on her lower back. "Dad," Alicia said as her heels clicked on the hardwood floor when she embraced him. "How are those IPO documents looking? I had our European legal team review everything twice, always the overachiever." Wayne chuckled as he hugged her. "The documents are perfect, just like everything you do." Scene and Crystal arrived next, a striking couple who turned heads even in San Francisco's jaded social circles. Scene had inherited Wayne's height and Marlene's dark eyes, while Crystal's elegant beauty and quiet intelligence made her a perfect addition to the family. Crystal greeted him with a warm hug. The Tokyo expansion numbers looked fantastic this quarter. Scene clapped his father on the shoulder. "Wait till you see next quarter's projections, Dad. The Asian market is just getting started." The door opened again, revealing Marlene Bryant in a stunning red dress that highlighted her still athletic figure, a testament to her rigorous sessions with her personal trainer. "Wayne, darling," she said as she kissed his cheek, "have you heard from Travis? He's not answering his phone. Probably stuck in traffic." Oliver's voice came from the doorway. "You know how the financial district gets at this hour." Wayne watched his family settle around the table, their conversations flowing easily. Oliver took a seat beside Marlene, and their heads bent together as they discussed the Foundation's latest charity event. Scene and Crystal huddled over a phone, presumably reviewing business data, while Alicia and Hugh debated European market regulations. The scene should have warmed his heart, yet an unfamiliar unease crept through him like a shadow passing over the sun. Travis burst in 20 minutes late, his medical resident coat hastily exchanged for a sports jacket. Sorry. Emergency at the hospital ran long." He hugged his mother, who smoothed his collar with practiced affection. "My baby, the doctor," Marlene beamed. "Though I still think you could have joined the company." "Mom," Travis groaned, though his smile was genuine. The evening progressed with the comfortable rhythm of a family gathering. Wayne watched his youngest son accept congratulations and field questions about his residency plans. Travis had always been different from his siblings, less interested in the family empire and more focused on helping others. Wayne had surprised everyone by supporting Travis's medical dreams, much to Marlene's initial disapproval. "Excuse me," Travis said during the dessert course as he pulled out his vibrating phone. "Hospital again. I need to take this," he announced. As he hurried out, his phone slipped from his jacket pocket and clattered on the hardwood floor. Wayne reached down to retrieve it, intending to follow his son. The screen lit up with an incoming message, and Wayne's world tilted on its axis. The group chat read, "Operation Phoenix. Marlene, everything is arranged. Once I sign the IPO next week, Roman will handle the rest. A carjacking gone wrong in the financial district. Clean, quick, untraceable." Wayne's finger hovered over the message. Every instinct screamed to ignore it, to pretend he hadn't seen it. Instead, he opened the chat and scanned the conversation rapidly. Alicia wrote, "Are you sure about this? There's no going back." Scene replied, "The company shares will transfer automatically. With Dad gone, we'll control everything." Travis asked, "What about Uncle Oliver?" Marlene responded, "He knows his cut minus 20 years as my faithful CFO while helping me plan this. He's earned it." Each message felt like a dagger to his heart, with references to offshore accounts, discussions of share transfers, and mentions of someone named Roman, a name that recalled Marlene insisting on hiring a new personal trainer 3 years ago. Travis's voice snapped Wayne back to reality. "Is that my phone?" Wayne looked up at his son, his youngest, his baby boy, and saw a stranger. How long had Travis been part of this, Was his choice of medicine truly his own, or part of a long game to appear removed from the company? The screen lit up again. "Wayne," Travis said in a steady voice as he handed over the phone. "I thought it might be important." Travis's fingers closed around the phone too quickly, and his casual "thanks, Dad" sounded a little too high-pitched. Wayne returned to his seat and accepted a coffee from the waiter. He smiled at Marlene's touch on his arm, nodded at Oliver's comment about the IPO, and laughed at Scene's joke about Asian market competitors. Each interaction felt like swallowing broken glass. His family continued their celebrations, unaware that their carefully constructed plan had begun to unravel. Wayne now watched them with new eyes, seeing subtle signs he had missed before. He noted how Oliver's laugh seemed forced, how Marlene's touches lingered a fraction too long, and how his children occasionally glanced to their mother for cues. Marlene's message said 20 years, he thought. 20 years of planning my death while sharing my bed, raising my children, and building my dream. 20 years of my best friend's betrayal, hidden behind loyal counsel and shared celebrations. At midnight, the Bryant Technologies building was different. Emergency lights cast long shadows through empty corridors, and the usual buzz of employees had been replaced by the soft hum of servers and climate control systems. Wayne sat in his private office, the glow of multiple monitors illuminating his face as his fingers flew across keyboards. He had built his company on innovation and cybersecurity, and now it was time to use those skills again. A database search revealed what he was looking for: Roman Gordon. There were multiple domestic violence cases that had vanished from court records, assault charges that never stuck, a pattern of involvement with wealthy women followed by unfortunate accidents befalling their husbands. Wayne pulled up banking records next. Marlene's hidden accounts were not as hidden as she thought, not from someone who had built his fortune on finding digital breadcrumbs. There were regular payments to Roman Gordon dating back 3 years. Offshore accounts in the Caymans had been opened 15 years ago, with Oliver's expert guidance. A soft knock froze his fingers over the keyboard. He closed his windows with practiced speed and pulled up the IPO documents instead. Working late, Oliver's familiar silhouette filled the doorway. "Just reviewing some IPO details. Can't sleep with all the excitement, you know," Oliver said as he stepped into the office, his shoes silent on the plush carpet. "Anything specific catching your eye?" Oliver asked. "Actually, yes," Wayne replied, watching his oldest friend carefully. "Remember that backdoor contingency protocol we built into the company structure? The one that would let me liquidate everything in an emergency?" Oliver's expression remained neutral, but his fingers twitched, a tell from our weekly poker games that had won me thousands over the years. "That old thing. We should have removed it years ago. Too risky," Oliver said. "Yes, too risky indeed," Wayne agreed pleasantly. After Oliver left, Wayne returned to his searches with renewed urgency. "They thought they knew all my contingency plans, all my fail-safes. Oliver had helped design most of them. But there was one plan they didn't know about, one backdoor I had built alone in the early days when paranoia and ambition drove me to prepare for every possibility, even betrayal from those closest to me." I opened my secure terminal and began to type. Outside my window, San Francisco glittered like scattered diamonds, beautiful and cold. Somewhere in that glittering landscape, my wife was probably meeting with her contracted operative. My children were likely finalizing their roles in my murder. My best friend was covering their financial tracks. I had built an empire from nothing once before, and now I would do it again. This time, I would build it from the ashes of betrayal. The night stretched on as my keyboard clicks echoed through the empty office, like a digital requiem for the life I thought I knew. By the time dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, I had set in motion a plan that would either save my life or destroy everything I had built. Either way, my family would soon learn they weren't the only ones who could keep secrets. The morning sun cast long shadows across my kitchen counter as I methodically spread butter on my toast, maintaining the routine I'd followed for decades. Marlene bustled around me, Her designer workout clothes suggested she had another session with Roman scheduled. "You're quiet this morning," she noted as she poured green juice into a travel bottle. Nervous about the IPO. I took a careful bite of toast, buying time to keep my voice steady. Just thinking about all the moving pieces. I wasn't lying. I was simply not specifying which pieces occupied my thoughts. "Everything will fall into place," I assured her. Marlene smiled as she touched my shoulder while passing by. The same hands that once seemed to plot your demise now offer comfort. Later, at a meeting with the foundation board, she said, "We should discuss the post-IPO charitable giving structure." "Of course," I replied, wondering how many of those charity meetings had really been planning sessions for my murder. "I'll have my assistant set something up." After Marlene left, I stood at the window watching her car disappear down our private drive. The moment she was gone, I pulled out a secure phone, one I had acquired yesterday through channels my family knew nothing about. The first call went to Bryant Technologies' head of security, James Chin. "I need everything you have on Roman Gordon. Full surveillance, no questions asked. And James, this stays between us," I instructed. "Understood, sir," James replied. I continued, "I need everything. And I mean everything." My next call was to Christine Le. In the 25 years since she helped code our first firewall, she had risen to become my head of development while staying completely out of corporate politics. More importantly, she had no connection to my family beyond professional courtesy. "Meet me in the secure server room. Use the old entrance. And Christine, don't tell anyone, not even your team," I ordered. I found her waiting in the windowless room 40 minutes later, her gray hair pulled back in its usual practical bun. Screens lined the walls, displaying the digital heartbeat of Bryant Technologies' global operations. "Sir," Christine said, eyes widening at my expression, "in 25 years, I've never seen you look like this. I need ghost protocols initiated on all family accounts," I said without preamble. "Everything they think they control needs to become shadows," I explained. Christine hesitated, her fingers hovering over a keyboard. "This will take weeks to implement properly. The security implications alone." "You have 2 days," I replied. Christine turned to face me fully. "What's happening?" "If I tell you, you become complicit. Can you work better not knowing?" Her fingers began flying across the keyboard. "Already started, sir. 2 days it is." I watched her work for a moment, remembering the young programmer who once believed in my garage startup dreams. "Thank you, Christine," I said. She didn't look up. "Don't thank me yet. This is going to be the coding sprint from hell." Leaving her to her work, I made another call to Sophia Shelton. We had been friends since law school, before I made my first million, before she dedicated her life to running the country's largest children's charity foundation. "Wayne Bryant," her warm voice smiled through the phone. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Remember when you said I should do more for kids who can't afford computers?" I replied. I looked out over San Francisco. "I'm about to make your decade." "Wayne, what are you planning?" she asked. "Can't say yet, but clear your schedule for the next few days. And Sophia, thank you for still being the same person I met in law school." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of meetings and calls. I smiled through breakfast with Marlene, congratulated Travis on his residency offers, discussed European market projections with Alicia, and strategized Asian expansion with Scene. Each interaction felt like swallowing broken glass, but years of high-stakes negotiations had taught me how to hide my true thoughts. Behind the scenes, pieces were moving. James Chin's security team began discreet surveillance on Roman Gordon. Christine's developers worked in shifts, coding the ghost protocols that would turn my family's apparent control into digital mirages. Sophia's foundation lawyers drew up emergency transfer documents. By sunset, I had set in motion a plan that would either save my life or destroy everything I'd built. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family planned to use the IPO to kill me, but I would use it to save myself. Roman Gordon considered himself a professional, which is why he had been watching Bryant Technologies' parking garage for 3 days straight. He needed to know my routine, when I arrived, and where the security cameras were pointed. The fact that his client was my wife just made the job more interesting. What Roman didn't notice was the black SUV parked 2 blocks away, where James Chin's team photographed his every move. He also missed the 3 unmarked police cars positioned strategically around the building. Professional as he was, Roman had gotten sloppy after years of successful accidents. Inside Bryant Technologies, Marlene slipped into Oliver's office, her designer heels silent on the carpet. "Everything's ready for tomorrow. Wayne suspects nothing," she said. Oliver looked up from his computer, his wire-rimmed glasses reflecting lines of code. "Are you sure about this, Marlene?" 20 years, Oliver, she replied, her voice carrying the weight of 2 decades of planning. 20 years of playing the perfect wife while he built his empire on our backs. You've seen how he treats the kids like they're just extensions of his legacy. The kids, Oliver, are still so young to carry this weight. They're stronger than you think, she continued. Alicia has been running Europe better than Wayne ever could. Scene's doubled our Asian market share. Even Travis. She paused. Even Travis understands what needs to be done. Neither noticed the tiny red light blinking on the smoke detector, a new installation linked directly to the secure server room, where I watched their conversation on multiple screens. Christine worked beside me, her fingers dancing across keyboards. Ghost Protocol implementation was at 87%. All family account shadows were in place. Transfer pathways were prepared. I watched my wife and best friend plot my murder with the same efficiency they once used to plan company expansions. "Show me the trust structure again," I demanded. A complex diagram appeared on the main screen, a labyrinth of digital pathways that would activate the moment I entered a single command. Every account, every share transfer, every power move would become a mirage while real control shifted elsewhere. "It's beautiful," Christine murmured, admiring the elegance of our solution. "They'll think they have everything until the moment they don't," she added. My phone buzzed with a message from James Chin. "Gordon's on the move." Moments later, a screen showed Roman Gordon's black sedan pulling away from its surveillance spot. I picked up my secure phone. "Stay on him. I want to know everywhere he goes." The afternoon crawled by in a series of meetings where I played my part perfectly. I reviewed IPO documents with Oliver, discussed charity plans with Marlene, and held video calls with my children about their division's latest achievements. Each interaction felt like a scene from a play where only I knew the true script. I noticed subtle signs, Alicia's nervous glances when IPO timing was mentioned, Scene's forced laughter during strategy discussions, and Travis's sudden interest in company governance. The most painful moment came during my weekly one-on-one with Marlene. She perched on the edge of my desk as she asked about final IPO details, her hand resting on my arm. "Everything's proceeding exactly as planned," she said. I heard the double meaning in her words. "Yes," I agreed, covering her hand with mine. "Everything is proceeding exactly as planned." The most painful part, I still love them. Even now, I stood in my home office, adjusting my tie in the mirror. The sun was setting over San Francisco Bay, painting my Pacific Heights mansion in shades of gold and shadow. In 30 minutes, my family would arrive for what they thought was a pre-IPO celebration. What they didn't know was that this dinner would be their last performance as a united family. The table was set. Maria, our housekeeper, announced from the doorway, "Mrs. Bryant's favorite china, just as you requested." I nodded, thinking of how many family dinners had been served on those plates. How many celebrations. How many lies. "Thank you, Maria. You can take the rest of the night off. I'll handle the serving. Please, take the night off." I turned to her. "Thank you for 15 years of loyal service." She hesitated and then quietly closed the door. The security feed on my tablet showed Alicia and Hugh arriving first, followed closely by Scene and Crystal. Travis came alone, and Oliver arrived last. Always the faithful family friend, always the careful conspirator. Marlene emerged from the kitchen in a black dress that probably cost more than our first house. "Darling, everyone's here. Shall we?" I offered my arm, playing my role one last time. We entered the dining room to find our family arranged around a massive mahogany table, crystal glasses catching the light from the chandelier above. Before we began, I raised my glass and scanned the faces I had known and loved for so long. "I'd like to propose a toast," I declared. Everyone lifted their glasses, their expressions eagerly anticipatory. They thought they knew what was coming. Standard pre-IPO excitement, perhaps some fatherly wisdom. "To family," I said, watching their faces carefully. "To family," they echoed. "To loyalty," I continued. Was that a flinch from Travis, a flicker of guilt across his face? Then I said the words that made Oliver's fork freeze halfway to his mouth. "To Roman Gordon." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the city beyond our windows seemed to hold its breath. "Who?" Marlene asked, her voice steady though her knuckles turned white around her wine glass. I set my glass down deliberately. "Your trainer, or should I say, your specialist in making problems disappear." I turned fully to my wife. "He's being arrested right now. By the way, 20 years of cold cases have suddenly gotten warm." The room erupted into chaos. Marlene's carefully maintained composure cracked like fine china. "You scoundrel," she hissed. "You have no idea what you've done." Alicia's chair scraped against the hardwood as she stood abruptly. Her usually composed face lost all color as she glanced toward the door, her calculation clear. "Sit down, Wayne," I commanded in a quiet tone that carried the authority of a billion-dollar empire. "Nobody leaves this room." Scene's fingers flew across his phone screen, his polished Harvard demeanor giving way to raw panic. "The servers aren't responding," he blurted. "Why aren't the servers responding?" I asked calmly. "Because they're not your servers anymore. They never were." Travis, the youngest, sat frozen in his chair, tears rolling silently down his cheeks. The doctor's white coat he once wore with pride now looked like chainmail on his shoulders. "The backdoor protocol," Oliver whispered, his fork still suspended halfway to his mouth. Understanding dawned in his eyes as decades of financial planning unraveled before him. "You actually did it," he exclaimed. "Did what?" demanded Marlene, her knuckles white against the table's edge. "What did you do?" I demanded. I stood slowly, deliberately, as wine dripped from my suit onto the imported carpet, each drop worth more than my first month's rent in that Palo Alto garage. "While you were all plotting my death, I transferred everything," I announced. "The company, the accounts, everything. As of an hour ago, the Bryant Family Foundation for Children's Education owns 98% of Bryant Technologies." "You can't," Alicia gasped, her mind already racing with possibilities. "The IPO has been canceled," I declared, checking my watch with theatrical precision. "The press release goes out in 5 minutes." "You're bluffing," Seam declared, his voice cracking. "The board, the same board you've manipulated for 2 decades, is being replaced as we speak," I said. Hugh reached for Alicia's hand, but she yanked it away. "Maybe we should shut up," she snapped. "This isn't over. We have rights and legal options," I continued sharply. "Let's talk about legal options. Let's talk about conspiracy to commit murder. Let's talk about 20 years of embezzlement. And let's talk about hiring a known operative and calling him a personal trainer," I declared. Crystal, Scene's fiancée, pushed her chair back from the table. Her face took on a determined expression that no one noticed amid the chaos. Oliver started to stand. "Wayne, be reasonable," he urged. "We can't be reasonable," I finally cracked. Was it reasonable to plot my murder over family dinners? Was it reasonable to turn my children against me? Was it reasonable for my wife of 30 years to plan my death while sleeping beside me? Travis's sob cut through the tension. "Dad, I'm sorry," he pleaded. "I didn't want," he began. They said it was the only way. The only way for what? I turned to my youngest. The only way to what, Travis? To be free. Marlene answered for him. Free from your control, your expectations, your endless demands for perfection. She laughed bitterly. Did you ever wonder why Travis chose medicine? Because it was the furthest he could get from you without being disowned. And that justifies murder? I asked. You murdered us years ago, Marlene. She spat. Piece by piece, decision by decision. Every missed birthday, every canceled vacation, every time you chose the company over family, you built your revenge on the blueprint of my murder. My voice fell quiet. How long have you been sleeping with Roman? I asked. The question hit Marlene like a physical blow. She recovered quickly, but a flash of guilt crossed her face. 5 years, she admitted. He understood me, she continued. He saw me as more than just the CEO's wife, the perfect mother, the charity chairwoman. He saw you as his ticket to millions. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate him? Did you think I wouldn't find the pattern? All those wealthy women, all those convenient accidents. I countered. Scene suddenly stood, his chair toppling backward. This is insane. I'm calling our lawyers. Your lawyers have already been contacted by the SEC. I informed him. Turns out international market manipulation is frowned upon, even in Asia. Alicia's face went from pale to gray. The European contracts, all are being reviewed. I nodded. Every deal, every kickback, every shell company. You'll destroy everything. Oliver protested. The company will survive. Under new management, serving a new purpose. I cut him off. Did you really think I'd let my life's work become a murder weapon? A distant siren began to wail, growing closer with each passing second. Marlene's face hardened into a mask of hatred. You called the police. They've been building the case for weeks. I replied. Detective Saunders is very thorough. She's particularly interested in those cold cases Roman left behind. Travis stood on shaky legs. Dad, please, I'll tell them everything. Just please, sit down. Travis, Marlene ordered. He's bluffing. He wouldn't dare. The front door burst open as Detective Nina Saunders strode in, flanked by uniformed officers. Her gray suit and sensible shoes marked her as someone who cared more about results than appearances. Marlene Bryant, the detective announced authoritatively, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. As she read out the charges, I watched my family's carefully constructed world crumble. Alicia's legal mind failed her as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Scene's international business acumen found no escape from this crisis. Travis's medical training offered no cure for betrayal. Oliver, my oldest friend, looked at me with a mixture of respect and resignation. The ghost protocols, he murmured as an officer approached with handcuffs, were beautiful. I taught you too well. No, Oliver, I corrected. You taught me just well enough. Detective Saunders had requisitioned a conference room at the precinct for interviews. Its glass walls overlooked the San Francisco night skyline, the same lights that witnessed our rise and fall. Let's start at the beginning, she said, her recorder capturing every word. Mrs. Bryant, when did you first consider having your husband killed? She asked. Marlene sat rigidly in her chair, her designer outfit stark in the police environment. I want my lawyer. Of course, Saunders nodded, but you should know we have everything. The offshore accounts, the meeting recordings, the deleted text messages, even your conversations with Roman Gordon. Impossible, Marlene whispered. We were careful. We were always careful. Not careful enough, she admitted. From the doorway, Crystal's voice came. She stood there holding a phone, her hand trembling slightly. I recorded everything. In another room, Scene, during his interview, felt the impact when Saunders presented transcripts of meetings he assumed were private. You discussed the murder plans during corporate strategy sessions, Saunders noted, highlighting sections of text. Very efficient, combining business with homicide. Scene's Harvard-trained composure finally broke. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he muttered. "Mom said it would be clean, professional. Dad would never suffer," he continued. In a third room, Alicia's corporate lawyer crumbled under the weight of evidence. The European division was supposed to be mine anyway. I built it. I made it profitable. Dad just wouldn't let go. "So you helped plan his death instead?" Alicia asked. "Do you know what it's like being Wayne Bryant's daughter? Nothing was ever good enough. Every success came with a new demand, a higher goal," she declared. "And that justifies murder," Alicia whispered. "No," she added softly, though it made it easier to rationalize. Travis's interview was the shortest. The youngest Bryant broke down completely, confessing everything between sobs. "They said it was the only way," he repeated. "Mom said Dad would never let us be our own people unless." Oliver's interview was the longest. As CFO, he had the most to explain. Decades of financial manipulation, hidden accounts, and carefully constructed paper trails. Wayne was brilliant, he admitted, but he was also blind. He never saw how his drive for success was crushing our family. "Marlene came to me 20 years ago after he missed our anniversary for a merger. She was broken, Detective. We all were," Oliver continued. "So you helped her plan his murder?" Saunders asked. "I helped her prepare for a future without him," Oliver corrected. "The murder that came later, when we realized he would never willingly let go." Crystal's testimony tied everything together. She had recorded meetings, conversations, and phone calls for months, ever since she first overheard Marlene discussing payment methods with Roman. "I couldn't let them kill him," she told Saunders, her voice steadied despite trembling hands. "Wayne's not perfect, but he doesn't deserve to die. Not like that, not by his own family's hands." The detective's report later called it one of the most sophisticated murder conspiracies she had ever encountered. A family using its own corporate success as both weapon and smokescreen, planning patricide behind boardroom doors. 1 week later, fog rolled across San Francisco International Airport's private hangars, shrouding the sleek jets in nature's own security screen. I stood watching the weather phenomenon from ground level, a view I had observed countless times from my office. Headlines screamed across tablets and phones. Tech billionaire foils family murder plot. Bryant Technologies donated to children's charity. IPO canceled as family faces charges. Domestic violence cold cases reopened in the Gordon investigation. Sophia Shelton's heels clicked on the hangar's concrete floor as she approached. Her legal pad contained the future of Bryant Technologies, now transformed into something I had never imagined. "The foundation board is assembled," she reported. "We'll make sure every dollar helps kids who need it. Educational programs, technology access, coding camps. And Marlene, the kids." My voice carried the weight of sleepless nights and endless questioning. "Facing charges," Sophia added softly, "but the plea deals are generous. You made sure of that. Marlene and Oliver will serve time with good behavior. Alicia and Scene face supervised release and community service. And Travis, the DA is considering immunity in exchange for his full testimony." I nodded, my eyes fixed on the fog outside. 25 years of work, 3 children, 1 marriage, all ended in a single week of revelations. A new set of footsteps approached. Crystal stood there with a small bag in her hand. "After your testimony blew the conspiracy wide open, I resigned from Bryant Technologies. Someone needs to make sure you don't get too lonely on that island," she said, her smile tentative but genuine. I turned to study her for the first time. She had seen through our family's deception, choosing truth over loyalty and righteousness over love. In doing so, she lost her fiancé but saved a life. "Why did you do it?" I asked. "Record everything. You could have been part of it all. Scene would have made sure you were taken care of." Crystal's smile faded. "Because it was wrong. Because murder doesn't become right just because you dress it up in corporate language and family justifications. Because I saw what dining with killers did to Travis. How it hollowed him out, made him less than he could be." My phone buzzed with a message from Travis. "Dad, I'm sorry. When I'm better, when I've earned it, can I come see you?" After a long moment, I typed back, "Always." The fog began to lift as we boarded the private jet. I took one last look at my city, the towers I had built, the life I had created, the family I had lost. The plane's engines hummed to life, promising escape and peace. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "the greatest victory isn't in keeping your empire, but in choosing what legacy you leave behind." Crystal touched my arm gently. "And what legacy is that?" "Hope," I replied, watching San Francisco disappear beneath the clouds. "Hope for kids who need it more than my own children ever did." The jet banked east, then south, toward an island where the waters were blue, and the past could not follow. An island with no betrayals, no empires to fight over, only peace, purpose, and perhaps, with time, forgiveness, not for them, but for myself, for not seeing it sooner. Somewhere over the Pacific, I finally allowed myself to cry, not for the empire I'd lost, but for the family that had died long before they planned my death. Beside me, Crystal kept a quiet vigil, guarding me as she had when she'd first discovered the plot against my life. The sun broke through the clouds, painting the sky in shades of possibility. Below, the ocean stretched endless and blue, promising new horizons, new beginnings, and perhaps someday healing for wounds deeper than murder plots and betrayal. I had lost my family, but saved my soul. In the end, that would have to be enough. Epilogue. 5 years later. The California State Women's Correctional Facility stood stark against the rolling hills, its concrete walls bleached pale by endless summers. In the visitors' area, Marlene Bryant sat straight-backed in her gray prison uniform. Her once perfect manicure was now plain and short. 5 years of incarceration had left their mark, subtle lines around her eyes, gray streaks in her hair that she could no longer hide with expensive treatments. "Mrs. Bryant," a guard said with professional detachment, "your visitors are here." Alicia stepped into the room, her designer clothes a sharp contrast to the institutional setting. Prison visits had become her monthly ritual, a penance for her part in our family's fall. "Mom," she said as she settled into a plastic chair, "how are you holding up?" Marlene smiled thinly. 3 more years with good behavior, unless your appeals team has better news." "They don't," Alicia replied. Her community service sentence had ended last year, and her legal expertise now focused on legitimate corporate restructuring. The evidence was too solid. Crystal's recordings and the financial trails Oliver left behind. "Crystal," Marlene's voice, edged with 5 years of bitterness, asked, "Have you heard from your brother in Singapore?" Alicia replied carefully. After his supervised release ended, he started a small consulting firm. "It's nothing like Bryant Technologies." "And is he still angry with you?" Marlene asked. "Mom, Crystal saved our lives. If the police hadn't been involved," Alicia shuddered, "Roman would have killed Dad, and we'd all be facing murder charges instead of conspiracy." The mention of Roman Gordon made Marlene flinch. Her lover and would-be hitman had not fared well in prison. His fellow inmates took a dim view of men who specialized in causing harm to wealthy women. He was found dead in his cell 2 years into his sentence, officially ruled a suicide, though rumors suggested otherwise. "Have you heard from your father?" Marlene asked casually. "The foundation is doing amazing work," Alicia said. "They've provided technology education to over 100,000 underprivileged children. There's a coding academy in every major city now." "That's not what I asked," Alicia sighed. "But he's happy. The island suits him." "Crystal?" Marlene inquired. She hesitated before continuing. "They got married last spring, a small ceremony. Travis was there." The mention of her youngest son made Marlene's composure crack slightly. "How is he?" "His medical practice is thriving. He now specializes in trauma counseling, helping people heal from betrayal and family violence." Alicia met her mother's eyes. "He's good at it. Understanding what drives people to betray their loved ones gives him insight. And Oliver? Marlene asked. 2 more years in minimum security. The embezzlement charges were less severe than. Alicia let the sentence hang. Less severe than conspiracy to commit murder. Meanwhile, on a private island in the South Pacific, I stood on the deck of my beachfront home, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold. At 60, I looked younger than I had 5 years ago, as if shedding the weight of betrayal had reversed time. The Foundation's quarterly report came in as Crystal joined me with a tablet. Now my wife of 6 months, she had transformed from Scene's fiancé into my partner in life and philanthropy. The new AI education initiative is exceeding all projections. I smiled, recalling board meetings and profit margins from my old life. And the special project, the scholarship fund for children of incarcerated parents, is making a real difference, Crystal added. Her mention of my youngest brought both pain and pride. Travis had emerged from our family's destruction stronger, turning our tragedy into help for others. His trauma counseling practice had become renowned, his insights into family betrayal painfully firsthand. Have you read Alicia's latest email? Crystal asked about her visit to Marlene. Yes, I replied quietly, with only distant sadness. 5 years in prison changes people, though perhaps not as much as 5 years of freedom. A small plane's sound approached. Our weekly mail delivery was early. That'll be Travis's wedding invitation, Crystal smiled. He wanted us to have it first. Travis had met Sarah, another trauma counselor, at a conference 2 years ago. Their shared understanding of family complexity had blossomed into love. I had never seen my son happier, more himself. Speaking of family, Crystal said carefully, Scene called yesterday. He wants to meet in neutral territory, in Singapore. His consulting firm is doing well, helping small tech companies navigate Asian markets legally now. Crystal's smile held a touch of sadness. He says he understands why I had to do what I did. And Alicia's firm, specializing in corporate ethics and compliance. Ironic, isn't it? She's using everything she learned from our fall to help other companies stay honest. Crystal checked another notification on her tablet. The Foundation just approved your firm for pro bono consulting work with tech startups. I nodded, pride mixing with old pain. My children have found their paths, even if those paths were paved with betrayal and revelation. Oh, Crystal added, Detective Saunders retired last month. She sent us a letter saying our case changed how she sees family crime. She's even writing a book about it. I chuckled. From tragedy to case study. At least some good came from it all. At the Brandon Trauma Center, Dr. Travis Bryant finished his last session of the day. His patient, a young woman struggling with parental betrayal, had made breakthrough progress. Remember, he told her, forgiveness isn't about excusing their actions. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of hatred. After she left, he opened a desk drawer and removed a worn photograph. The last Bryant family dinner before everything fell apart. They all looked so happy, so perfect, with no one suspecting they were plotting murder over crystal glasses and fine china. His phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. Invitation proofs are ready. Sure you want to include everyone? Travis smiled as he typed back, yes. Even Mom. Especially Mom. His wedding would be the first time the entire Bryant family gathered since the trial. Marlene would attend under supervised release, a privilege earned through years of good behavior. Oliver, in minimum security, would also be there. Scene had agreed to come, finally ready to face Crystal after 5 years. Alicia would attend with her husband, Hugh, leaving corporate warfare behind. And I would walk in with Crystal, our unexpected love story, a reminder that beauty can grow from the ashes of destruction. Sarah understood my need for this reunion. As a trauma counselor herself, she recognized the healing potential of controlled confrontation. The Bryant family would never be what it once was, but perhaps we could become something new, something honest. Back in her prison cell, Marlene Bryant lay on her narrow bed, holding Travis's wedding invitation. The heavy cream paper felt foreign in the institutional surroundings, its elegant script a reminder of the life she'd lost. Her cellmate, a former bank executive serving time for fraud, looked over curiously. Special occasion. My youngest son is getting married, Marlene replied in a distant tone. Ironic. Her cellmate noted. Fitting, Marlene corrected. He learned the hard way what betrayal does to people. We all did. She thought of Roman. His grand promises of a new life together ended in a prison cell death. She thought of Oliver, my co-conspirator for 20 years, now serving his own sentence for financial crimes. She thought of her children, Alicia and Sean rebuilding their lives, Travis turning our tragedy into healing for others. Most of all, she thought of me, the husband she once plotted to kill, who now lived in paradise with the woman who exposed our plot. The company she helped build now served a purpose greater than profit, and our twisted family had found paths to redemption. Was it worth it? Her cellmate asked. Marlene traced the embossed letters on the invitation. The plotting and the lies. No. But the aftermath. The truth. Maybe that was worth everything. In my Singapore office, Sean Bryant ended a video call with Crystal, our first direct conversation in 5 years. His small, growing consulting firm occupied a single floor, nothing like the towering Bryant Technologies offices, but honestly earned. A framed news article hung on his wall. Bryant Technologies Foundation launches Asian Education Initiative. My father's and Crystal's smiling faces looked out from the photograph, a constant reminder of what our family had nearly destroyed. An assistant buzzed in. Mr. Bryant, your sister's online call. Put her through. Sean picked up the phone. Alicia, did you get Travis's invitation? Are you really going to come? 5 years is long enough to hide, his sister replied. Sean glanced at another frame on his desk. Crystal at our engagement party, her smile genuine even as she recorded our crimes. We all deserve a chance to do things right this time, he thought. The sun set over the Pacific as Crystal and I walked along our private beach. Crystal carried Travis's wedding invitation, its edges ruffled by the sea breeze. Full circle, she mused, from a family dinner that exposed murder plots to a wedding dinner that might heal us. I squeezed her hand. Not full circle, more like a spiral, maybe. We're all in different places now, even if we're coming together again. Crystal stopped and turned to face me. Do you regret any of it? I watched the waves for a long moment. I regret not seeing the truth sooner. I regret that it took a murder plot to show me what really matters. I smiled at her. But the rest, the foundation helping thousands of kids, Travis finding his true calling, you have no regrets there. A distant rumble of thunder suggested a storm was approaching. But on our island, storms were just part of life's natural rhythm, like betrayal, redemption, and the long path to forgiveness. Sometimes, I added as we turned toward home, the greatest victory isn't in keeping your empire, but in choosing what legacy you leave behind. Exactly, Crystal finished. The familiar words now held new meaning after 5 years of building something better from the ashes of betrayal. Behind us, the sun sank into the ocean, ending another day in our new life. Ahead, storm clouds gathered, but they carried only rain now, not the thunder of impending destruction. The time for betrayal had passed. The time for healing had begun. And somewhere in California, in a prison cell, in a trauma counseling office, in a Singapore consulting firm, and in a corporate ethics department, the scattered pieces of the Bryant family were preparing to come together again. Not to plot murder over fine wine, but to celebrate love over wedding cake. It wasn't redemption, not quite, but it was something close, something honest, something earned, something that could only grow in the fertile soil of truth, watered by tears of regret and warmed by the sunlight of forgiveness. Our Bryant family saga began with betrayal plotted in darkness. It would continue in light, each of us finding our own path to redemption, our own way to turn tragedy into purpose. And maybe that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.